Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Shang. For the world's biggest gang of video game hackers, game is over. Chinese authorities arrested 10 people for selling cheating software for best-selling games, including Call of Duty and Overwatch. They seized $76 million along with luxury cars and other goods from the alleged illicit enterprise. Cheating has become an epidemic in esports, also known as competitive video gaming. That has made it fertile ground for hacking. Total, a video game analyst, said cheating syndicates like the one busted in China and hackers have long operated with impunity. He said, they are extremely professional. If you look at some of the website's offerings, they have shopping carts, they have pricing lists, they have customer service. Mr. Total compared the websites that hackers create and use to Amazon. Some of these companies are raking millions and millions each month, and the scale is really unbelievable in some cases, and so are the profits. China's crackdown reveals the dark side of competitive video gaming, where top stars playing solo or on teams are earning seven figures. Online gaming grabs so many eyeballs, it's become a political tool. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez live-streamed herself playing on the Twitch gaming platform last year as hundreds of thousands tuned in. Japan has an entire hotel dedicated to esports. Hotel E-Zone opened last year in the western Japanese city of Osaka. Manager Takahiro Shimamoto said most adult customers check into the hotel on Friday and play all weekend long. Most people don't have lightning-fast reflexes like the professional gamers, part of what makes cheating so irresistible to some. Instead of getting crushed in competition, using cheats can gamers a sharpshooter's aim and let them see through walls like a Superman. With more than half of its 1.4 billion people online, China is home to a slew of cyber spies and hackers. Indeed, China has likely stolen more secrets from business and governments than any other country. Covert espionage is the main Chinese cyber threat to the US, while disruptive cyber attacks occasionally come from China. Those that cause overt damage, like destroying data or causing power outages, are more common from the other top state threats, namely Russia, Iran, and North Korea. But Chinese cyber aggression toward the US has been evolving. Before their espionage became a serious threat, Chinese hackers were conducting disruptive cyber attacks against the US and other countries. Chinese hackers were among the first to come together in defense of their country. Their first operation against the US occurred in 1999 during the Kosovo conflict, when the US inadvertently bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade, killing 3 Chinese reporters. The patriotic hackers planted a message denouncing NATO's brutal action on several US government websites. Chinese hackers struck the US again in 2001 after a Chinese fighter plane collided with a US reconnaissance aircraft. The mid-air collision killed the Chinese pilot and led to the forced landing and detention of the American crew. Both Chinese and American hackers responded with disruptive cyber attacks, with the Chinese hackers defacing thousands of US-based websites, including the White House site. What is especially important about this incident, though, is what happened next. The People's Daily, China's Communist Party newspaper, issued an editorial decrying the attack against the White House. The paper called it and the other attacks web terrorism and unforgivable acts violating the law. On the anniversary of the incident in 2002, the government asked the Chinese hackers to forego further attacks against US-based sites, and they complied. That was the last bigger cyber attack from Chinese patriotic hackers against the US, while Russia seemed to condone, if not outright encourage or even sponsor, its patriotic hackers. China has taken a stance against that sort of activity, at least with respect to US-based sites. The Chinese government's Great Firewall keeps internet users in China from accessing censored foreign sites such as those that advocated Tibetan autonomy. Users' traffic is filtered based on domain names, internet addresses, and keywords in web addresses. Chinese hackers have also used the denial-of-service attacks to temporarily take out sites whose activity the government wants to block. These attacks overwhelm target servers with large amounts of activity, preventing others from using the sites and often knocking the servers offline. Back in 1999, the government launched the denial-of-service attacks against foreign websites associated with Falun Gong, a spiritual movement banned in China. Then in 2011, a Chinese military TV program showed software tools being used in possible cyber attacks against Falun Gong sites in the US. The tools were developed by the Electrical Engineering University of China's Armed Forces, the People's Liberation Army. More recently, in 2015, US and other foreign users visiting sites running analytics software from the Chinese search engine provider Baidu unwittingly picked up malware. The malicious code was injected into traffic going back to the users by a device collocated with the Great Firewall. The malware then launched the DOS attacks against the greatfire.org, a site that helps Chinese users evade censorship, and the Chinese language edition of the New York Times. By 2003, China's interest in cyber espionage was apparent. A series of cyber intrusions that US investigators codenamed Titan Rain was traced back to computers in southern China. The hackers, believed by some to be from the Chinese army, had invaded and stolen sensitive data from computers belonging to the US Department of Defense, defense contractors, and other government agencies. Titan Rain was followed by a rash of espionage incidents that originated in China and were given code names like Byzantine Hades, GhostNet, and Aurora. The thieves were after a wide range of data. They stole intellectual property, including Google's source code and the designs for weapons systems. They took government secrets, including usernames and passwords, and they compromised the data associated with Chinese human rights activists, including their email messages. Typically, the intrusions started with spear-phishing. In 2013, the American cyber intelligence firm Mandiant, now part of FireEye, issued a landmark report on a Chinese espionage group it named Advanced Persistent Threat 1. According to the report, APT-1 had stolen hundreds of terabytes of data from at least 141 organizations since 2006. The Mandiant report gave details of the operations and provided evidence linking those thefts to Unit 61398 of the People's Liberation Army and named 5 officers of the unit. This was the first time any security firm had publicly disclosed the data tying a cyber operation against the US to a foreign government. In 2014, the US indicted these 5 Chinese officers for computer hacking and economic espionage. Mandiant described APT-1 as one of more than 20 APT groups with origins in China. Many of these are believed to be associated with the government. A report from the nonprofit Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology describes 15 state-sponsored advanced persistent threat groups. According to the Institute, China's espionage supports the country's 13th five-year plan, which calls for technology, innovations, and socio-economic reforms. The goal is innovative, coordinated, green, open, and inclusive growth. Most of the technology needed to realize the plan will likely be acquired by stealing trade secrets from companies in other countries. In its 2015 Global Threat Report, the American cyber intelligence firm CrowdStrike identified dozens of Chinese adversaries targeting business sectors that are key to the 5-year plan. It found 28 groups going after defense and law enforcement systems alone. Other sectors victimized worldwide include energy, transportation, government, technology, healthcare, finance, telecommunications, media, manufacturing, and agriculture. In June 2016, FireEye reported that since 2014, there had been a dramatic drop in cyber espionage from 72 suspected China-based groups. FireEye attributed the reduction to several factors, including President Xi's military and political initiatives, the widespread exposure of Chinese cyber operations, and mounting pressure from the U.S. government. The ICIT believes China may also be asserting greater control over its operatives and focusing on unspecified high-priority targets. Last September, the Justice Department has charged 5 Chinese nationals in separate global hacking schemes targeting more than 100 video game firms, universities, and other victims. Officials were also accusing Beijing of tolerating their crimes because they work on behalf of the country's spy services as well. The Chinese defendants belong to a highly prolific hacking group industry analysts call Wicked Panda, or APT41, which is linked to the Chinese Ministry of State Security, a civilian spy agency responsible for counterintelligence, foreign intelligence, and domestic political security. One is accused of boasting to a colleague that he was very close to the MSS and would be protected unless something very big happens. Taken together, the charges outlined in 3 grand jury indictments represent the latest salvo by the Justice Department aimed at disrupting malign Chinese behavior in cyberspace. It is part of a broader Trump administration campaign to call out Beijing for its long-running efforts to spy on the West to advance its economy. Last July, the Justice Department charged 2 alleged hackers with working not only to enrich themselves, but also on behalf of the MSS. What prosecutors characterized as a blended threat. Then as now, officials accused the Chinese government of turning a blind eye on the defendants' criminal activities. In that instance, they were accused of targeting American biotech firms because they also worked for the state. The cyber threat to the US from China is mostly one of espionage, and even that threat seems to be declining nevertheless. Companies need to be wary of losing their data, not just to China, but to any country or group seeking to profit from US trade secrets and other sensitive data. That calls for staying ahead of the cyber security curve. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly.